All right, and we're live, and I'm here with my frequent sidekick, Artistic Layman.
How do you do, fellow kids?
Indeed, and tonight we're going to be talking about some clown world shit, in more ways than one. And first, I don't know. I don't even know where I want to begin with this. Okay, so, all right, look, we're all having fun with the clown world meme, right? We're all having a fucking blast with it. You got Pepe the Frog. He dressed like a clown. Right, and we're calling him Honkler. Kind of sounds like Hitler. Oh, it's all kinds of fun and edgy. It's a blast. I'm having a blast with it. We all love our Joker memes. We all love our clown world memes. I will say, let's not get too attached to it because you know it's going to be shitted up. You know it's going to be shitted up. All right, let's be real. Every meme gets fucking shitted up. All right, in a year's time, it's going to be the cringiest shit in the world, and you're gonna want nothing to do with it. Trust me. Like I see like podcasts starting up like on YouTube, like, oh, it's the first episode of the Honk No State, or it's the first episode of the Honkler the Clown podcast. Everybody trying to laugh. Don't name your fucking podcast after a meme, okay? Like, don't do that. Just don't.
Memes
Okay?
have a very limited shelf life as time progresses, so be careful.
Yes, don't do that, all right?
Send in the clowns.
So yeah, the clown world meme is fun because that is where we're at. All right, you know, everything is fucking ridiculous. All right. So yeah, clown world's a lot of fun. Eventually the fucking wignets, eventually the fucking retards and spurgs and Asperger assholes, they're gonna ruin it. All right. They're gonna shit it up, and you don't want nothing to do with it. But yes, here lately, it's a huge fucking popular meme, and we're all having a blast with it. But some of us, some of us, I shouldn't say, some people, is people even appropriate? Some entities, some barely sentient fucking entities by the name of Jared Holt specifically, doesn't understand what the fuck the meme even is. As is often the case, it is quite amazing. Jared, the Pepe the Clown there, I like that. Honkler the Clown. You know, and we're going to be talking about a lot of clown world shit tonight. We're going to be talking about the upcoming Joker movie, my thoughts on how it looks, and also some left-wing spurging about it. We got a lot of clown-related shit tonight, interestingly enough. I don't know if I'd go so far as to say that's fucking fantastic. I don't know if I'd go so far as to say that's the theme of tonight, but we're going to be having some clown shit going on here. Anyways, so Jared Holt, and I threw a link to this article in the chat. Now, this is over at rightwingwatch.org. And Jared Holt on April 4th of this current year writes, white nationalists adopt clowns as their next racist symbol, parentheses, yes, seriously. Oh, Jared. Oh, Jared from Subway Holt. What are you doing with yourself? Online personalities in far-right and white nationalist online circles are attempting to attribute racism and anti-Semitism to an image of cartoon character Pepe the Frog, depicted poorly drawn as a clown. And that effort has gained noticeable traction in recent months. Far-right proponents want the broader internet to believe the character directly represents their worldview. But the situation in whole represents an attitude shift in far-right circles online and slow inching towards even more radical elements of the movement. The clown render of Pepe the Frog, which Know Your Meme researchers have identified as being Hong Kong or Honkler, you really had to go to Know Your Meme for that, buddy, began spreading across the internet last year. In recent months, the meme has gained a foothold in the far right and is bleeding into racist propaganda. Pepe the Frog, originally from the comic series Boys Club, was co-opted by an iteration of the white nationalist movement that emerged in 2015 and dubbed itself the alt-right. a term created as part of a strategy to obscure the inherent racism and anti-Semitism of the movement in hopes of making its agenda more palatable among conservatives. As if to this fucking communist there's any kind of a difference between alt-right and conservative. On 4chan, there's an abundance of memes depicting the character lynching black people, depicted in stereotypical racist ways, operating gas chambers and deploying racial slurs. Notice he doesn't actually show any of this shit. I mean, I'm sure there's the gas chamber one. That one's popular. I haven't seen any of him lynching black people. It may exist, but citation needed, Jarrett. Not that it proves anything if you did show it. Oh, there's a meme. Who the fuck cares? I don't know why I'm even letting myself getting into the weeds of your bullshit argument. The Operation Honkler post cited by Know Your Meme reads, they will adopt our child and post Honkler on social media under mainstream memes already in circulation. There will come a time when we must take him back. Whether of the honk or not, we must perpetuate this meme to show the world our ideas. So somebody typed that on an image board, and Jared Holt believes that this is to be taken seriously. Are you of the honk, my brother? Like, wow, Jared. Wow.
Yes, Jared, thank you for missing the freaking point of being the clown yourself.
Yeah, I want to get to this article, but we'll get to just how badly this nibba is missing the point. All right. The sentiment of the Honkler meme has also appeared in written format on venues where images won't fit. A clown emoji and a globe emoji together has been used to convey the phrase clown world, where the phrase isn't fully written out. Such references can be found in numerous Twitter profiles, including the Rebel media personality Martina Markota, and who Salon reported in 2017 as having ties to the far right. Oh no! Well, shit. If Salon said so. Honk memes were also used by Microchip, a pseudonym used by far right troll, who made waves propagandizing in favor of Donald Trump during the 2016 election to replace slurs and curse words in his posts on Gab. Does anybody need to fucking censor themselves on Gab? The phrase clown world and accompanying emojis usually unify far-right social media users in their exacerbation over an imagined state of collapse in the Western Hemisphere that they largely blame on immigrants and minority groups. Okay, well, maybe he's half getting it. The force driving Honkler across the far right is the same bleak worldview that led white nationalists to embrace Democratic candidate Andrew Yang. In their minds, if there is nothing they can do to stop the supposed great replacement of white people in their homelands, no politicians who care enough about their cause to implement real policies that favor their agenda, they may as well accept the outcome and wrench whatever they can out of the system, like Yang's promise of $1,000 per month universal basic income. The mentality is often referred to as black pilling, which I'm sure is not the same type of black pill that Jarrett takes. Honkler and Clown World memes were recently incorporated into Goy Talk, a new but growing web-based white nationalist podcast. The show's hosts advocate white nationalism in a detached way and embody the same increasingly nihilistic attitude among the white nationalists and white supremacist movements in the United States, conveyed in the repetition of the phrase clown world. You know what's amazing? So he's arguing that all these evil white supremacists are demoralized and growing black-pilled and nihilistic, and he's like shouldn't he be celebrating that? Like, wouldn't you be happy if your enemies feel demoralized and downtrodden? Doesn't that tell you? I mean, doesn't that mean you're winning? Unless he's, afraid that, not having the means to speak out, they'll lash out violently, but maybe you shouldn't be supporting all this censorship then, if that's your concern. All right. Well, that's enough of Jarrett. So he sort of gets it, but as is often the case with him, not quite. Look, Clown World isn't. Boogie sends $5. Says leftists hate memes because it's an organic piece of culture outside the control of the cathedral. That's an excellent point, actually. Yes, that they hate memes for that reason. Brendan sends $2 and says it's people like him that justify bullying. I disavow, but I don't disavow those $2 though. I'll keep them $2. Well, after YouTube takes its cut. Anyways. Yeah, look, Holt's a fucking jackass. All right. Like this, this is the guy who thinks that, the milk toast pussies over at the Blaze are too far to the right. Oh, the scary white nationalists over at the Blaze. Yeah, I mean, and yeah, we do live in clown world, okay? All right. Look over in Europe. All right. Look in Europe where the police are confiscating butter knives from people while ignoring rape gangs. All right. Look here in America. And hey, at least we're not Europe. All right. My American nibbas. Let's all look to the sky and say, well, at least we ain't Europe. All right. But we still got our problems. All right. We got a 10-year-old boy doing fucking, stripper dance for gay guys at a bar, and everyone's calling it stunning and brave.
Good news! It's a suppository.
Yes, that's the kind of black pills that Jarrett likes, I believe. Yeah, this is a fucking clown world. All right, this is ridiculous. Yeah. We got this fucking soy motherfucker, Jarrett Taylor, who thinks that, who probably, I wouldn't be surprised if he's called Ben Shapiro an anti-Semite. Right? Yeah, it's all fucking clown world. Somebody in the chat just mentions May 23rd is Red Nose Day. Walgreens is selling red clown noses. Therefore, Walgreens is Hitler. I can't wait for Jarrett Taylor to write a fucking expose on Walgreens white nationalist ties or something. That'd be hilarious. I love Jarrett Taylor perpetually calling Wolf the way he does. I love that everyone to the right of fucking Lenin is a white supremacist and a Nazi and far right and probably religious right, although that's probably fallen out of favor. Whatever, anti-Semite, homophobic, transphobic, racist, misogynist, every fucking buzzword this NPC's programming can fucking blurt out. I love the fact that he's out there calling everyone to the right of Lenin every fucking name he can. Okay? Because that just pushes the fucking window. That just pushes the old Overton window. All right? That just pushes people right. He thinks he's shaming people into becoming a fag soy boy like him, but that's not the case. Doesn't work that way. So that's the Jarrett Taylor thing I wanted to cover.
We need Holt, not Taylor.
Yeah, I don't want to talk about him too much because he's just kind of sad. So we got a very special, very, very special article here. And a video. Luke, we're gonna watch a video here.
Ooh,
if you scroll down there, this is only a few seconds. It's if in this article there's one video that says watch woman tans so many people mistake her for black person. Don't watch that one. There's a video on here on this page that says watch here, and it's got what looks like I don't know. It looks like we're casting the Nutty Professor 3 or something over here, but see if we can bring that video up on this page. And this article is entitled Gender Studies Professor Says, quote, white people own time. Also, quote, if time had a race, it would be white. So we got that going for us, my fellow who whites. We own time. How about that? A gender study professor discussed the racial implications of time during an NPR interview last week, arguing, quote, if time had a race, it would be white, unquote, and that, quote, white people own time, unquote. Speaking to host Guy Raz for the TED Radio Hour episode Confronting Racism, Brittany Cooper, associate professor of women's and gender studies and African studies at Rutgers, expounded on her theory regarding the racial politics of time. Cooper's conversation with Raz was centered largely around a 2017 TED Talk she gave on the subject. During the TED Talk, Cooper said that, quote, white people own time, unquote, citing as evidence the black community's use of the phrase, quote, colored people time, unquote, a long-standing joke about black people's purported perpetual lateness, unquote. She even suggested that her own penchant for punctuality stemmed from her mother's reaction to racism. Quote, I am a stickler for time, almost as if my mother, when I was growing up, said, quote, we will not be those black people. So typically arrive 30 minutes early, unquote, Cooper said before declaring if time had a race, it would be white. So a bunch of your fellow blacks are late, or let's just say enough of them that becomes the stereotype. And that's my fucking fault somehow? Or is that my dad's fault or my grandfather's fault? Which one of my ancestors' fault is it that y'all fuckers can't tell time? I'm confused here. Maybe and apparently you can figure it out. You yourself claim to have mastered it. So it's not an inability here. Perhaps it's not me you should be lecturing here. But let's listen to what she has to say here, Luke. You think you can bring up this video for us? Let's listen to and I will say though, in all fairness to her, I did really, really like her in that movie where Sandra Bullock adopted her. So
but before we do that, I think I found the stereotype that she's complaining about.
Niggas love being another man's judge and jury. Niggas procrastinate until it's time to worry. Niggas love to be late. Niggas hate to hurry.
I disavow this shit.
But here's this video right here.
I'm gonna put him away, and I'm gonna see a poor, pathetic look in his eyes.
Oh, for fuck's sake! Yeah, skip the ad. Skip the ad.
I can't. Oh, skip. Here we go.
The race. A race in the contemporary way that we understand race in the United States. Typically, we talk about race in terms of Black and white issues. In the African American communities from which I come, we have a long-standing, multi-generational joke about what we call CP time, or colored people's time. Now, we no longer refer to African Americans as colored, but this long-standing joke about our—
I thought we did now again. What's all this people of color shit I keep— POCs, people of color. What's all that shit I keep hearing? I thought we did again. See, I can't keep it all. I can't keep it straight here anymore, guys. You're going to have to, I don't know, maybe release memos or something. I can't get— so we're back to not being able to say that? Guys, you're going to have to pick something, all right? Whatever you want to be called, just fucking have a meeting, take a vote, and pick it already.
We white people are a little behind on your nomenclature and your schedule, so please send us a memo once in a while.
Don't worry, we're sure it'll be late.
Our perpetual lateness to church, to cookouts, to family events, and even to our own funerals remains. I personally am a stickler for time. It's almost as if my mother, when I was growing up, said, we will not be those Black people. So we typically arrive to events 30 minutes early. But today, I want to talk to you more about the political—
I'm sure in actual, like, black families, you know, that actually have real families, you know, the father's around, the mothers, you know, they go to church, they're decent fucking people. I'm sure that the parents look at the kids and say, hey, we're not gonna act like them fucking savages over there. All right. You're not gonna have your pants hanging off your ass. You know, you're not gonna whatever, you know what I mean? Because here's the thing. I that's just people in general, all right? You know, trust me. You know, us white people, I know my dad, you know, was like, you know, we're not going to be some white trash or something like that. You know what I mean? I remember him working on his car once as a kid. This is a memory that sticks with me. And he had this fucking car. I can't remember what he was doing, but he ended up having to put it up on cinder blocks. He ended up having to put the 2 back wheels on cinder blocks overnight. And that drove him fucking nuts. Like he got up early. It was like a Saturday night. He got up early the next, like Sunday, and went out there and finished the job, you know, because he had to do it because it was getting dark, whatever. But it just drove him nuts. He's like, I'm not going to be some white trash fucking redneck with a busted car in the fucking driveway on cinder blocks. I'm not going to be that way, you know? So yeah, people tend to want to, you know, be better than when they see, especially people of the same race around them acting like trash. All right. So that's not your mother's internalized racism, like you're probably going to say. It's just your mother trying to raise you to be fucking somewhat decent, which at least in punctuality, she succeeded with. I mean, you're a 400-pound communist. So in many ways she failed, but she at least managed to teach you how to tell fucking time.
Political nature of time. For if time had a race, it would be white. White people own time.
All right, we did it, fam. We did it. We own time. You heard her.
Isn't it funny how the biggest advocate of white supremacy are the people who are anti-supremacists?
Yeah, I would like. I'm somewhat amused with this, but like, if I was black, I'd be like, "Fuck this bitch." Don't be dragging me down with you.
As Sargon said in that one debate, you're a white supremacist with a guilty conscience, including this woman.
Yeah. Well, we own time. All right. Well, I'm glad to hear it. You know, that's some good news. I'm not sure what I'm exactly supposed to do with that, but I don't seem to have any magical powers where I could stop time or something.
So who own time? Who owns everything else? Else.
Yeah. Who owns space? I don't know. Is that the Asians? Did they get space? I got the time stone from Thanos, and who's got the? Oh, let's keep going.
Oh, I know. Making such quote unquote incendiary statements makes us uncomfortable. Haven't we moved past the point where race really matters? Isn't race?
We're waiting for you to actually make it matter. That's my
problem. You're the one talking. Oh, it's just fucking white people and their punctuality. But haven't we moved past race? Like, pick one, okay?
Well, apparently, since we own time, we can't. So until black people own time, that's the point.
Trust me, I wish we had. Okay, I don't like having to think about fucking race all the time. All right. Seems to me things got a lot worse under the Obama years, too, I might want to add. But haven't we moved
a heavy-handed concept? Shouldn't we go ahead with our enlightened progressive selves and relegate useless concepts like race to the dustbins of history?
Yes,
I'm pretty sure she'd relegate useless concepts like fucking dieting. I cannot get over how ridiculously fat this was. Like, look, I'm kind of fat, all right, but damn.
How will we ever get over racism if we keep on talking about race? Perhaps we should lock up our concepts of race in a time capsule, bury them, and dig them up in 1,000 years.
Busting out of her clothes. She's the Incredible Bulk.
She's challenging the body mass of Precious.
I don't know how much time those clothes have.
Here at them with the clearly more enlightened, raceless versions of ourselves that belong to the future. But you see there, that desire to mitigate the impact of race and racism shows up in how we attempt to manage time, in the ways we narrate history, in the ways we attempt to shove the negative truths of the present into the past, in the ways we attempt to argue that the future that we hope for is the present in which we're currently living.
Okay, yeah, pause.
Now, when
I can't wait for this, I can't wait for the blob over here to explain to me how certain gentlemen of a heavily melanated persuasion being unable to fucking arrive for anything on time is my fucking fault. I can't wait to have that explained to me. So please, by all means, Nutty Professor, keep going.
Barack Obama became president of the US in 2008, many Americans declared that we were post-racial. I'm from the academy, where we're enamored with being post-everything. We're postmodern, we're post-structural, we're post-feminist. Post has become a simple academic appendage that we apply to a range of terms to mark the way we were. But prefixes alone don't have the power.
The more I think about it, I'm not convinced this really is a black woman. See, I think what this is she appears dark because it's difficult for light to escape the surface of her fucking massive gravitational body.
My God, it's finally happened. He's become so massive, he's collapsed into himself like a neutron star.
Yeah, that's just light unable to escape her. Let's keep going.
Power to make race and racism a thing of the past. The US was never pre-race. So to claim that we're post-race when we have yet to grapple with the impact of race on Black people, Latinos, or the indigenous is disingenuous. Just about the moment that we were preparing to celebrate our post-racial future, our political conditions became the most racial they've been in the last 50 years.
Gee, I wonder
Today,
why. You did that. Stop. You did that. All right? You fucking leftists decided to declare war on fucking whites. And you wonder why racial tension went through the roof. You decided to encourage every single conceivable category of human being except straight white males to engage in the most pathetic forms of identity politics. And you thought that one group was going to just not go, that they were just never going to hop on that bandwagon? You did this. Now, whether or not, it was always inevitable that the racial tensions, whatever. Point is, you're the one that stoked this fire for the past decade. So don't come crying why is everything on fire when you've been pouring gas on it, at a higher rate than this bitch pours butter on everything. Keep going.
Observations about the past, the present, and the future of time as it relates to the combating of racism and white dominance. First, the past. Time has a history, and so do Black people. But we treat time as though it is timeless, as though it has always been this way, as though it doesn't have a political history bound up with the plunder of indigenous lands, the genocide of indigenous people, and the stealing of Africans from their homeland.
Most of which was done by other blacks, I might add.
Do you want to go back? Honestly, at this point, I'm thinking, you stole us from our homeland. Do you want to go back? I bet you don't, because it sucks over there.
When white male European philosophers first...
For a second. I'm so sick of this bullshit, okay? I need to be held accountable because 100 years ago, somebody who looked like me, only a little skinnier, was mean to somebody that looked like her, only a whole shitload skinnier. And I'm supposed to feel bad about that. Who the fuck cares? Guess what? Slavery is not something white people invented. Slavery has actually been a pretty constant throughout human history. It still exists in, of all fucking places, Africa. You know what was unique to white people? Abolishing it. So, yeah, you know what? We're going to declare, what is it? We're in April now. We're going to declare April White History Month, okay? And here's a little white history for y'all. As far as I can tell, white people have no unique crimes as a race. We have quite a few unique accomplishments, abolishing slavery being one of them. That whole flag on the moon thing, that's another one. Let's keep going.
But in the immortal words of Andrew Breitbart.
And all the people that have gone out there against the mainstream media and said, you're going to call us racist, you're going to call us potential Timothy McVeigh's, you.
First thought to conceptualize time and history, one famously declared, Africa is no historical part of the world.
No shit.
He was essentially saying that Africans were people outside of history who had had no impact on time or the march of progress.
Yes, yeah, pause for a second. Guess what? Now, in all fairness, Africa's a big continent, and Northern Africa actually had some pretty damn significant impacts on the course of human history. However, Sub-Saharan Africa is about as backwards can be. And has been for thousands and thousands of years since man existed. All right.
I'm very curious how she's going to debunk this.
All right. I'm sorry. Yeah, a people that never invented anything, more advanced than the mud hut and the sharpened stick really didn't have a big impact on civilization on the course of human history. Now, interestingly enough, American blacks, for example, have had a pretty positive up until maybe, let's say, the 1960s effect on the course of American history. That's interesting. But your African cousins, they haven't done shit. All right. They haven't done shit. Every place in sub-Saharan Africa that is remotely civilized is so because of colonization. That's a fact. Those are facts. All right.
There's a joke that Jared Taylor always brings up when he's traveling through Africa. He's knowing the difference between Ivory Coast and Nigeria. He goes to someone in Nigeria. I don't mean to be rude, but Ivory Coast is light years ahead of you. What's the reason for this? He said, well, it's obvious. We didn't have the luxury of being colonized by the French.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know. Maybe Wakanda's still hiding somewhere in the fucking jungle, but the rest of the place is a shithole. All right. And if Wakanda is hiding, they're hiding from the rest of you. Yeah, it's a shithole. All right. Interestingly enough, it's precisely because it's so lush is why civilization stagnated there. When the food is scurrying between your legs and falling out of the trees, how much civilization do you need to survive? You need a little bit of basic shelter from the sun and the rain. You need a sharpened stick to hunt, and that's about it. It's really those harsh winters that force man to pull his head out of his ass and build something. But yeah, Africa did not have any significant impact on the course of human history. Sub-Saharan Africa, at least. Not really. I mean, did you have boats? Did you go, interact with other civilizations? No. Hell, you make the Vikings look fucking advanced. And basically, boats is the only thing they managed to make. And that was pretty much so they could go find new places to go rape and kill and break things. So yeah, sorry to tell you, it doesn't have any real impact.
But can't you just prove it in what little time she has left?
John Steele says peanut butter in the chat. Well, like I said, American blacks have had some positive impacts, but peanut butter wasn't some Nigerian prince that came up with peanut butter. Oh let's go.
That Black people have had no impact on history is one of the foundational ideas of white supremacy.
Oh no, is that it?
I guess.
Oh no.
All right, so yeah, the oh no, but white people own time. You heard her. You heard her. We own time. Congratulations to us all. Eldritch fan sends $5 and says, Wakanda forever. Hidden Figures was Kangs. We was Israelis and Romans and founded America, you damn honky prick. That's right. That's right. So, before I move on to some other articles, before I forget, because I've been forgetting and only doing the sponsor at the end of the show, our sponsor tonight is the good folks over at Steve's Jerky. Get you some Steve's Jerky. Steve's Jerky is delicious, good old-fashioned Cajun jerky. I'm pretty sure he stole the secret from those very advanced Nigerians, but it is absolutely delicious. So go to facebook.com/Steve's Jerky and get you some Steve's Jerky. Excellent, excellent stuff. I'm extremely picky on jerky. I love it. Everybody who's had it loves it. And in my personal experience, it protects you from the hexes of witches and wizards. So it's got that going for it. Grayscale Plaid sends $5 and asks, "Can I sell my portion of time and be allowed to be late?"
When you go teeth, flaunt it.
So, the new trailer for the Joker movie was released. The standalone Joker movie. And the trailer has warmed me up to it. A lot of the early, on-set pictures I didn't like. I still don't particularly like the character design of Joaquin Phoenix Joker look. I mean, part of it, and I know I'm a big old comic book geek, and who cares? But I don't like the orange suit instead of a purple suit. I don't like the sort of triangles over the eyes. It just doesn't strike me as looking like the Joker. And I mean, there's a broad range of, that looks like the Joker. This just sort of looks like a clown. This looks like the character design reminds me of like Image Comics back in the early 90s. 90% of the characters that would appear in those books were blatant ripoffs of Marvel and DC characters. Changed just enough to avoid a lawsuit. And this looks like, this looks like a character I'd see in that named the Jester or something like that. You know what I mean? I don't like the character design. I think it strays too much from the look of the Joker to really even be at a glance identifiable as the Joker. I mean, I hated the Joker's look in Suicide Squad. I thought that looked like shit. But at least I could at a glance tell that was the Joker. You know what I mean? Now, that's a relatively minor thing. I like the idea of a standalone Joker film, hard R and mid-budget and being its own continuity and, that sort of thing. I like the idea of it. I like the trailer so far. I like it a lot. This looks like it could be a very interesting movie, and I like the fact that comic book. On some level, I kind of lament the fact that comic book movies are so fucking popular because it's oversaturation. And whenever something is popular, you get the SJWs worming their way into it and wanting to shit it up. I'm sure after Captain Marvel, the Marvel Cinematic Universe is going to get run into the dirt, that sort of thing. On the other hand, though, I like the idea of it increasing in popularity because now we're going to see a bit more, I don't want to say experimental, but kind of, that's the word I'm looking for, a bit more oddball superhero movies. And we've seen some of that over the years. It was odd to see Kick-Ass get a movie, that kind of thing. You know, Venom had a standalone movie that, you know, of varying degrees of success. We've seen these sort of oddball things before. But it's very interesting to get A and R-rated. I believe this one's R-rated. I can't imagine it's not. And B, you know, sort of a much more gritty, a much more dark crime crime movie type take on things. I like that a lot. You know, the very cool thing about Marvel and DC's pantheon of characters is that there's such a wide variety of stories that can be told with them. I mean, the Batman franchise alone can tell anything from very, very goofy, over-the-top superhero action to much more down-to-earth, gritty crime dramas. So I like the idea of this. I'd like it if we could get more movies along this vein, sort of standalone, their own continuity, and trying to be kind of dark, trying to be a little bit different. I would very much love a Question live-action movie. That would be the tits. You know, a kind of a precursor to this was Deadpool. You know, Deadpool, you know, languished in development hell for a very long time until somebody had the foresight to just leak the test footage out there, and the internet went crazy saying, "Oh, this is awesome," and it finally got greenlit. And that ended up being fantastic. So, yeah, there's a lot that can be done with this. Now, there's a lot that we can do with the superhero stuff, these comic book characters, beyond just big budget, you know, over the top superhero goodness. Now, I like those kind of movies, don't get me wrong, but that's not all that can be done. That said, though, while I am a bit more sold on this movie after watching the trailer, a lot of other people are not. It's amazing, the Borg-like hive mind of the fucking leftist media. Literally, just on a whim, no, I shouldn't say on a whim. Just I go into Bing and I just type, damn it. Sorry, fucking ads. I Google, I Bing, you know, this fucking white male, toxic white male Joker, and I get like 5 articles right from the get-go. Basically saying the exact same thing. So I'm going to read just the titles of 3 articles, the top 3 articles I brought up here. This article from the Daily Dot is entitled "Joker is Catnip for Batman's Toxic Masculinity Fandom" by Gavia Baker Whitelaw. And then over at awardswatch.com, Joker trailer leans into the reality of toxic white male fragility by Eric Anderson. And then over at theindependent.co.uk, if Joker is just another celebration of toxic, egotistical male justifying his bad behavior, I'm not here for it, by Clemens Michelin. So there you go. Top 3. I just typed in toxic white male Joker. Boom. There it is. Top 3. The same fucking article written by 3 different people.
I'm just gonna hurt you. Really, really bad.
So I want to read a few of these. We're going to start with, if Joker is just another celebration of a toxic, egotistical male justifying his bad behavior, I'm not here for it. This article was kind of interesting compared to the other 2, because there's like half of this article I agree with. You know, we were laughing about the Joker memes and the clown world memes and all, and let's be real. You know, there's definitely a type of guy on the right, on the dissident right, on the esoteric oddball far right, who's just a fucking contrarian asshole, just somebody trying to sound smarter than they are. You know, I'm kind of reminded of someone I used to associate with recently. You know the types. So about half of this article I kind of agree with. All right, so the article goes on. You've already met the Joker. He vaped. His favorite book was The Unbearable Lightness of Being. There was music he understood that you just had to listen to. Few people understood him, but he picked you. The article goes on. The new trailer for Joker, the forthcoming movie about DC Comics villain of the same name, opens with a close-up of a sad man. He's depicted talking to a Department of Health employee. Does it help to have someone to talk to? She asked. Judging by what follows, it does not. See, the Joker is moody. It is, of course, his mother's fault. She always told him to smile and put on a happy face, the sad man laments. She told him he had a purpose, to bring laughter and joy to the world. What follows is a montage of the Joker dressing as a clown, trying to do just that, except that the world will not have it. The Joker gets bullied. The Joker gets beaten up. The Joker gets called a freak. The Joker tries to smile, but he just can't. And while the trailer only hints at the devastating consequences that rejection will have on his psyche, the outcomes are well known for those who have watched one of the many films in which the Joker features. Or, you know, people who have actually read the source material. Fucking poser. As a character, the Joker has acquired a bit of a fan following over the years. His popularity has been bolstered by the performance of Jack Nicholson, Heath Ledger, and Jared Leto. No. Nobody's citing Jared Leto as the reason why they love the Joker. Get the fuck out of here. And soon, Joaquin Phoenix, who plays the title role in Joker. And while I'm sure DC's forthcoming film will find its audience, it's hard not to notice that dedicating an entire standalone film to the Joker, and possibly a couple of sequels if it does well enough, contributes to romanticizing one of the most toxic archetypes of pop culture. By the way, remember when it was the right that was complaining about how violent movies, all that other bullshit? It bears reminding that the Joker is, at his core, a psychopath, a mass murderer, a terrorist, and all-around bad guy. His portrayal varies slightly from one film to the next, from one comic book to the next, but you can be pretty sure that at some point he's going to commit a crime and or kill someone, and that he will enjoy it. He's the quintessential toxic man.
Bechtloff, correct me. I'm not up to comic books like you are, but Joker is a bad guy, right?
Yes. Yes, does it? That's the other thing. These people, and you know, you kind of saw this years ago with the religious right, and they're complaining about movies and everything's corrupting people. Like, they have no sense of nuance. They have no sense of, like, you know, you can sympathize with a character even if you don't, even if you're not meant to want to, you know, be like them. I mean, that's kind of the thing that was so cringy about all the idiots that, like, oh, I'm just like Rick. I'm just like Rick from Rick and Morty. You know, again, I used to know a jackass that actually made a podcast entitled "Be a Rick in a World Full of Jerrys." But you're not supposed to want to be Rick. At the end of the day, Rick doesn't want to be Rick. You know, characters like Rick, or you could look to Dr. House. That was a great show for a while. Yeah, they're funny. And yeah, there's a part of you that wishes you could be an asshole like that, you know? But you're not supposed to want to be like them. The point of the Joker, when he makes these fucking speeches about how, you know, the world is insane and I'm just ahead of the curve, and, you know, there shouldn't be rule, all this other bullshit, all this other LARPy fedora 14-year-old bullshit that the Joker goes off about. It's supposed to connect to you a little bit. You're supposed to be like, you know what? There's a part of me that feels that way. But that's every villain in well-written fiction. Every villain in well-written fiction, you're supposed to look at them and be like, you know what? I know why you think that, but, or there's a part of me that agrees with you, but.
Or as you might say with movie Bob, there by the grace of God go I.
Yeah. That's the point.
You can't make an omelet without breaking some eggs.
You know, I might have had this a little messed up. Maybe I was looking at the wrong. Okay, so I think this isn't the article where like part of it I agreed with. All right, this guy is just whining about toxic male. So we're gonna hop over to another article. And I should be throwing these in the chat for you then, Luke, so you can look at them too. One of these made a point about. I guess we'll get to it here soon, but one of these was making a point about a certain segment of Batman fans that's obsessed with it being taken seriously and being seen as serious by non-fans and that sort of thing. And I kind of agree with that being obnoxious because that's sort of how you end up with the Nolan trilogies, which, again, they're not bad movies by any stretch, but I just feel like they don't age well, precisely because they try so hard to lean into being taken seriously. You know, that they don't even really achieve realism at the end of the day. Okay. Because, you know, I mean, take the third one. The third one's the worst example of this. You know, we can't have, for example, Selena Kyle actually be called Catwoman because that's too campy and cringy or whatever. But Batman can have his back fixed by ancient Chinese secret. Because realism, I guess. Like, there's a lot I appreciate about those movies. I'm glad they came and went. I think they had an interesting impact on film. I think they had an interesting impact on the Batman mythos. Certainly, you know, Heath Ledger's Joker performance, it can't be argued that was incredibly captivating. Every moment that guy was on screen, there were just unimaginable layers to that performance. Every twitch of it, just incredible. I would say Tom Hardy's performance as Bane is also very, very enjoyable, although probably not for the reasons intended. Other than that, though, they're kind of boring. They're kind of boring. You know, I like them less every time I watch them. And there is kind of where, you know, again, I like the fact that we can lean into a very dark, heavy, almost down-to-earth crime drama with these kind of stories. But I feel like we can also go the other direction. You know, there's a lot of stories to be told here. I don't want to just get pigeonholed into one because I'm concerned that, people need to take it seriously. You know, ironically enough, the Joker himself wouldn't agree with that.
Why so serious?
Let me see if this is okay, so this is an article from Awards Watch. The Joker trailer leads into the reality of toxic white male fragility. Because of course. It's a fine line between creating a sympathetic villain and justifying the behavior of a serial killer or mass murderer. And the first teaser trailer for Todd Phillips' Joker film starring Joaquin Phoenix ever so treacherously walks that line. No doubt the Joker is one of media's most lauded villains, a brightly colored, maniacal foil to Batman's brooding darkness and misery. They're the opposite sides of the same coin. Batman internalizes his trauma and fights crime. The Joker externalizes his and commits it. Both provide extreme fictional outlets for toxic masculinity at its worst, but they do also provide inroads to celebrate it. Batman is toxic masculinity now. Fuck these people. You know, they like, look, okay, yeah, it's all goofy and over the top, all right? Yes, we understand that. It's fucking superheroes, all right? But no, Batman is not toxic masculinity. Batman is, and I know you fucking liberals don't understand what this word is, but say it with me, a hero. He is a man he is a character that, man, he's not fucking real. I don't even like saying that. He's a character that took extreme trauma at a very young age and harnessed it to attempt to make the world a better place. Is he an asshole? Well, yeah. But he's the kind of asshole you need out there, you know? He's an asshole like a drill sergeant is an asshole. You know, he's a constructive asshole. Batman's just a toxic masculinity. This is some article I read. I remember it was when the Spider-Man game came out, and they're like, "Why is Spider-Man helping the cops?" I don't know. Maybe because he's fucking Spider-Man.
I am vengeance. I am the night. I am Batman.
These fucking people, man. It just... Let's skip to this other article. I'm going to throw this in the chat too for you, Luke, if you want to throw any of this up. Hey, we got Pastor Tom coming in here. How about that?
Hi.
Hey, how's it going, Pastor Tom?
Pretty good. I was wondering how long it'd take you to notice me. I just figured I'd come in and just be quiet.
That's how I like to sneak into live streams. Just sort of like I snuck into Matt's once and just sort of like spoke up in the middle of something, and Matt's like, how'd you get in here? Like, I go where I please. But yeah, we're talking about how the new Joker film is all about toxic masculinity, and Batman's all about toxic masculinity. See, he shouldn't be beating up those criminals. He should be, I don't know, holding their hands and letting them talk about their feelings or something.
Wait a minute. So the left is against somebody dressing up in black, wearing a mask, and going and taking their own form of justice out on other people by beating them up?
You know, that's interesting. Apparently they are, but only if white men do it, I believe. You know.
Well, how can you tell if they're white under the mask? I mean,
no one cared who they were until they put on the mask. But yeah, this drives me nuts, and I've said this numerous times on this show. But like at the end of the day, part of the reason you see the comic book industry in the sad state it is with all these social justice warriors is these hardcore leftists, they don't understand anything about the superhero genre. They don't understand whatever made it connect with people. Because, I mean, most superheroes at their core represent some element of masculine virtue. You know, most of them represent some element of I don't know. There's something inherently right-wing about them that I think these leftists just can't get their head around.
You have to remember, this man isn't responsible for those killings. He's merely a victim of the Batman's psychotic obsession.
I thought I was Batman's psychotic obsession.
Yeah, The Dark Knight Returns did a really good job parodying that kind of bullshit leftist crap where it's, you know, oh, well, it's just the Joker's just a creation of the Batman, and he's just like this because the Batman draws this. No.
Hero-complexed sociopath. I would love a shot at him as a patient.
Do guests get to keep these?
Sure, you do whatever you want with it. We got a closet full of them.
So long as you won't miss it.
So Pastor Tom, what have you been up to this week?
Busy visiting people. Got one member who's going through a hard time right now. Helped my brother-in-law move into his apartment today. So that's always been fun. Talking with some people on Twitter and getting into Twitter debates, which is not as much fun. So, you know.
Pastor Tom did on his channel a really great video on Sola Scriptura, which I'm going to go ahead and recommend to everybody to check out.
Only if you're a nerd.
But yeah, I like that a lot. I liked, I liked a lot of the refuting where, you talked about like, sola scriptura isn't the abandonment of tradition or anything like that. It's not, one guy on a desert island with his Bible kind of thing.
No, it's not. I mean, it's many times where, you look at the theologians and you say, yeah, there's a lot to be learned from there. There's a whole host to be learned from there, but they're not infallible. They can make mistakes. Scripture is the only infallible source of authority for the church. So, that's the distinction that's got to be made there. If you don't make that, then you're going to get into all kinds of, crazy things. And again, or if you abandon that altogether, if you say Scripture is not infallible, then you're going to get very soon the church is going to be blown to wherever the culture is. And that's what you see with a lot of the leftist churches. The first step that you see before they start going down any kind of liberal path is the abandonment of the authority of Scripture. That's the very first step. I mean, that's the thing. And so, you can look at that almost as a litmus test. Once you abandon that, you're going to quickly go down, wherever the culture is. Whatever they're accepting, that's what you're going to accept eventually. Because it's going to be, your church is made up of people, and people are influenced by the culture. So what the culture accepts, what? If there's no opposing force, then you're going to accept exactly what the culture accepts. Scripture acts as that opposing force to keep you anchored from wherever the winds are blowing the current culture.
I thought the Pope did that.
The Pope is a person.
I'm not really sure if this Pope is a person, but that's a whole different topic. But no, I threw a link to it in the chat. If anybody wants to check that out, I highly recommend it. I found it really good. So Luke, what did you think of Shazam? I know you went and saw Shazam.
Oh, it was fun. Oh, it feels like a movie that should have been made in the 90s, which is a time when I remember movies actually being somewhat good, but it is fun.
Yeah, it looked a lot like that. I might sneak off to it tomorrow.
I'll spoil one little scene, but now that there's two kids, one can become an adult, and so they try to do adult things. And so one of the ideas is to go into a strip club, and so he goes in there. He goes to a strip club. He walks out with like a few minutes later, like, dude, what's going on there? We're gonna need a lot more money. But you were only in there for 5 minutes. No, they were very persuasive.
Yeah, I think it looks great. There's a lot of B and C list characters that I'd like to see more focusing on. That like I said, I'd love to see a question movie.
Well, the guy who plays him, Shazam, Chuck, or he played Chuck on that show. Chuck, I used to enjoy that show, so I wanted to go see the Shazam movie when I get a chance. So I bought Aquaman on Blu-ray recently. So
yeah, I've heard good things about Aquaman too.
It's good. It is one of to me, it's the best DC movie. And I mean, it made me want to go back and rewatch the other DC movies. And like, that's actually, yeah, Zachary Levi, thank you, Grayscale Plaid. Yeah, it actually made me want to go back and, watch some of the other DC movies. I mean, as far as Aquaman's concerned. So it actually gave me a greater appreciation for Batman v Superman. So. Which I think gets some undue hate. I think it's a better movie than people give it credit for. It's got its issues, sure, but I think it was sort of unfair. I think people thought it was going to be The Dark Knight Returns, or they thought it was going to be DC Civil War, and that's not what it is. And I think that expectation kept people from liking it as well as maybe if they didn't have that going into it.
Well, people have always tried to compare this to like being like the Deadpool version of DC. If DC actually had a consistent universe, and there's a lot of similarities in that because the thing kind of pokes fun at the whole their own superhero universe.
I don't have a problem with that, but I don't really like Deadpool. I don't think that he's, I am totally like parodying a video from somebody that I saw, and I don't want to mention him because he's associated with like, alt-right stuff. I mean, it's ER basically, but I mean, his video on Deadpool and One Punch Man was really good. And he brings up some excellent points how One Punch Man is a much better subversion of the superhero genre than Deadpool.
I was never a big fan of Deadpool in the comics. There were some really good Deadpool stories and some not. A lot of the fourth wall breaking gets really obnoxious. I think the first Deadpool movie turned out really, really well. I think it's everything that was good about Deadpool and did just a fantastic job of it. The second one, it's a decent movie, but it just sort of meanders. It doesn't really have the impact the first one did.
I don't know. I mean, to me, Deadpool kind of strikes me as the kind of character that's like Captain Jack Sparrow. You know, he's good as a complement to other characters in a good story where he's sort of coming along and poking fun at the main story. But in his own story, if it's maybe not an origin story or something, he's not as strong of a character. You know, he works better playing off of the main characters. Like in Pirates of the Caribbean, the main character is Will. He's really the protagonist there, and then Jack Sparrow helps him. You know, like I think that's more of a better role for like someone like Deadpool or again, you know, Jack Sparrow or whatever.
Deadpool 2 shines best when it finally reaches the point where he's working alongside Cable. And it ends up being that kind of buddy. I mean, in the mid 2000s for a while, Deadpool didn't even have his own book. His book was just called Deadpool and Cable, and it was this sort of, you know, buddy adventure type book. You know, with the goofy guy and the straight man kind of comedy duo.
Yeah, I think that works really well.
There's a regular team up
to play off of.
Well, one of the interesting things with Deadpool in the comic that it's sort of the exact opposite in the movies is, you know, in the two movies, Deadpool, like the X-Men wanted him to join, but he wanted no part of it. Whereas in the comic, like Deadpool is desperate to join any superhero team that will have him. He's desperate to like hang out with and team up with other superheroes, and most of them can't stand him.
All right, so every once in a while, someone in Hollywood remembers that you can enliven a done-to-death storyline like, say, a working-class boy rising to heroism to save his upper-class sweetheart by putting in a supporting character who's a wacky, random, scene-stealing, live-wire goofball.
That sounded like Movie Slob.
It was.
But yeah, I like the first Deadpool movie a lot. I think it works really well. I think the second one kind of just meanders a bit. It just doesn't gel like the first one did. But again, Pastor Tom brings up a good point. Deadpool is somebody that's not that great as an individual starring role.
You know, it's sort of like the same thing in One Punch Man. You know, if a One Punch Man focused solely on Saitama, it would not be that interesting. You know, where it draws a lot of attention is in the other heroes. And then Saitama comes in and just sort of, you know, it delivers the punchline at the end of it, you know. But what makes it interesting and where the tension is you see these weaker heroes fighting this other one. And then that's where the joke is that, you know, Saitama can just come in and beat everybody with one punch.
And since by nature the live wire is just pure id, comprised of nothing more than attention-getting affectations, he can bounce around on the edges of the plot as a way to solve or start any problem needed to drive the story.
Yeah, like I wouldn't want to, like I probably won't enjoy a Deadpool 3 because at that point they'll probably have, you know, unless they just completely fold him into a team and it ends up basically being, I don't know, let's say just an X-Force movie or something. That would be a lot different. But Deadpool on his own, yeah, a little bit of that goes a long way. It's, you know, it's sort of the frosting on a cake kind of thing. You know, the frosting on a cake is the best part. Well, why don't you just eat a thing of frosting, though? That's disgusting. You know?
Well, I mean, with Disney and Fox sort of merged together, I think a movie that could be really good would be a Spider-Man and a Deadpool movie. I think Ryan Reynolds and Tom Holland, and this particular Spider-Man that's sort of, you know, he's kind of, the way that they've set him up, I think those two could go very well together. I could see that being a really good movie with that Spider-Man and Tom Holland and the Deadpool with Ryan Reynolds. And again, I think something about those two actors, I think they could play very well off of each other too.
It's a damn shame we couldn't have couldn't have gotten a good you know, Deadpool Wolverine movie together. I think he would have played well off Hugh Jackman's Wolverine.
I think so too. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe, I guess, is Hugh Jackman, he's completely done? He won't do anything?
I bet he could be talked back into things for the right project, but he's basically done with the character. And I mean, he's played the character for the majority of 20 years, so.
Sure.
You know,
it's the same thing with like Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man. Like on the one hand, it'd be sad if he leaves after Endgame, which he probably will. But on the other hand, I'm kind of excited to see him in other roles. You know, I'm kind of, again, I am ready to see Robert Downey Jr. start playing other roles now besides just Iron Man and Tony Stark.
I'm of the mindset where, especially if you get back the rights to Fantastic Four and X-Men, the best move would probably be to wind down the Marvel Cinematic Universe, you know, and give it a good send-off and sort of restart it.
Yeah.
A new continuity that, I mean, if it were up to me, I'd like to see kind of like highly well-produced shows instead of actual movies, but that's my kind of dream wish because, there's so much you can get to that you can't really get to when you're doing movies. I mean, you know, you can pump out what 3 movies a year in this series, as opposed to 20 episodes in a year. You know, there's so many stories you're never going to reach. You know what I mean? You're never going to get to, because you kind of have to do a bunch of stories first to get to them. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But
yeah, if it were up to me, you start with like, I don't know, 4 shows running parallel to each other, intertwining, X-Men, Fantastic Four, Avengers, and Spider-Man. Maybe a 5th one called like Marvel Knights, where it's an anthology dealing with like darker characters like Punisher or Ghost Rider or Blade, stuff like that.
Yeah. I can see that. I mean, again, I've not been the biggest fan of the Marvel. I'll only catch, you know, probably like 1 out of the 3 a year. So, and most of the time, I mean, you know, I don't know. So, but I do like what DC's doing in regards to now.
What was that, Luke?
Leave me all alone here with less angry Rosie O'Donnell.
that character with this character.
You have a metal arm? That is awesome, dude.
Yeah, I think they would play well off of each other. I really do. I think that they could do well. Maybe not, but have y'all seen the Bumblebee movie?
I haven't yet. I heard it's actually pretty good.
I saw it.
It is good. I liked it. I saw it the other day. My wife and I saw it. We really liked it. She's not big on the Transformers movies, but she liked that one. And I did too. I thought it was good. I wish them more of if they're going to keep doing the Transformer movies, I hope they make it more like Bumblebee in the future.
It had all the kind of worst trappings of the Michael Bay series, but at least the Transformers actually look like the Transformers, like they're supposed to look.
Well, no, I don't think it did. I mean, number one, because the characters are actually likable. The worst thing about Michael Bay is that you aside from maybe the first movie, you don't like any of the characters in there. You know, Shia LaBeouf's character is completely unlikable. The parents are unlikable. They're annoying. A lot of the Transformers are unlikable. But in Bumblebee, I mean, I felt for the girl. I mean, you know, she's not perfect. She's kind of a jerk sometimes. But by and large, you know, you do sort of feel for her. You kind of feel for her situation. You know, the friend is I think they wrote that for a white guy, and then they just kind of didn't. I don't know. It's weird casting with the friend. I mean, I don't know, maybe not. But I mean, he comes across as very, I hate to use the expression, but non-alpha, you know. But anyway, he does a good, you know, the actor did a good job playing that. And then Bumblebee was good. You know, I thought with the robot and the interaction was really good. And the 2 other Decepticon Transformers too. Those were good. Seeing that they had more personality.
Yeah, I liked the first Transformers movie, but I never, to be honest, the only other one I saw was the second, which I don't think it's as bad as everyone likes to say, but it's definitely not a good movie.
No, it's very gratuitous. That's kind of the way that I describe it. I mean, like, you know, how's the action? It's gratuitous. How are the stupid jokes? Well, they're gratuitous. You know, how's the insensitive humor? It's gratuitous. You know, I mean, that's this thing. It's just, there's so much needless junk in there. And of course, a lot of people don't like that because, like, Optimus Prime becomes a psychopath. Like, he's like literally telling people, you know, give me your face, and like ripping their heart, like their robot heart out, and then crushing it in front of them. It's
yeah, that is not Optimus Prime at all.
Right? Yeah, that's Optimus. You know, the one who, you know, let's not fight if we don't have to.
I'm all about peace. Rips their heart out.
Yeah, freedom is the right of all sentient beings, unless you're a Decepticon. Then you must die.
But yeah, I heard good things about Bumblebee. I like the fact that he actually looks like a Volkswagen Beetle again, instead of what was he, a Camaro in the first one or something? I know because the first movie had a GM sponsorship, so they were all fucking Camaros, or they were all GM products.
Yeah, and he actually talks in this one, which is nice. Like, they actually explain, like, I don't know if it's like a prequel or a reboot. Like, I don't know, there was points where it kind of felt like a prequel, and then there's other points where it's like, there's no way this could fit in the Michael Bay movies. So I don't know what was going on there, if something changed, but they kind of explain why he has to talk to the radio, but he starts out with an actual voice.
And then gets ripped out in the combat when he lands on Earth.
Yeah. The one of the robots rips it out.
But yeah, I've been meaning to see it. I heard good things about it.
Which, I mean, again, I could geek out because I do like the Transformers, so I could geek out on that, but I won't do that for you guys.
There's a new Transformers comic out. Like it's starting anew.
Yeah, I've wanted to read that. I'm not much into comics, but I did want to kind of look at that. It seems like most of the best Transformer stuff is actually in the comics, from what I've heard.
Oh yeah, Marvel did great series back in the '80s, and IDW has done a lot of great Transformer stuff over the last, basically well over 10 years. They've had the license. I think like 05 is when they got the license, something like that.
Yeah, there's been one that I've been, it's like if I ever had time, I would check it out, called Last Stand of the Records. I've heard a lot of good things about that.
There's a Transformers Ghostbusters crossover coming out soon.
I know, that looks really good. Gozer's going to go to Cybertron, and then you have Ghost Starscream.
Well, they do a lot of the whole multiverse stuff has become like a constant theme in the Ghostbusters comic ever since the Ninja Turtle crossover, which I like that continuity because, Egon knows that parallel universes exist and how to get to them. So that just, there have been crossovers with different versions of Ghostbusters and all throughout the years. And there's some sort of crossover with Transformers coming up with Gozer appearing on Cybertron and stuff. And I'm like, sure, that sounds fantastic.
There's a really good series on Netflix that deals with like multiple universes and everything and crossing into them, called OA. I think it's called OA or AO. Anyway, I think it's OA, but it sort of is dealing with that, with multiple universes and dimensions and stuff. It's kind of interesting. It's a little slow at parts, but it what it's dealing with is very interesting.
There's rumors of a possible revival of Sliders. I've read a couple.
I never saw that. That was one of those sci-fi shows that I kind of missed.
I didn't really watch it when it was on Sci-Fi Channel, but I watched it when it originally was on Fox. I watched the first couple seasons. I think I started to bail once. What's that actor's name? He was in Indiana Jones. The fat professor in Sliders. I can't remember that actor's name, but he's been in a ton of stuff.
He plays Gimli, right, in Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
He's Sola in Indiana Jones.
Yeah, he was also the Kingpin in the Incredible Hulk TV movie that featured Daredevil back in the 70s or 80s.
John Rhys Davies.
There you go. Yeah. But I love the original cast of Sliders, and especially him. And when they killed that character off, I just sort of started to lose interest in the show. And then it got canceled on Fox and picked up by Sci-Fi Channel or something. But like at first, I loved that show. Now, granted, I was like in 7th grade or something, so maybe it wouldn't hold up if I watched it now. But I loved that show a lot when it first came out.
Did you ever watch Farscape?
I watched a little bit of Farscape. I had a roommate once that was really big into that.
I liked Farscape. I really liked the first season's kind of gets slow, but the second season, third season are two of the best seasons. I don't know. I wonder if Sliders is on any like Netflix or something. I might have to try to check it out.
Yeah, I really liked the first season of Sliders, and the second season's decent.
Like I said, that and Babylon 5 was just one of those shows that I just like. I'd watch some sci-fi, but those two, I don't know why I didn't really ever get into them or anything. Like but I'd watch Farscape, I'd watch SG-1, Star Trek, that kind of stuff.
You watching New Orville?
No, I don't have cable, and satellite doesn't really pick it up.
You should try looking on the Fox website. You might be able to find it there.
Okay, I've heard good things about the Orville. Like I know you guys talk about it a whole lot. How it's more of like a Star Trek show than Star Trek Discovery.
Oh, easily. And it's the best way I can describe it is it's Star Trek with a little bit more humor and a little less autism.
Okay.
I mean, there's no other way to put it. There's only one episode I would actually say was bad in the 2 seasons now that I've watched. But all in all, really good show. I enjoyed it a great deal.
Okay, I'm seeing in the chat that James Gunn was a fan of Farscape and used it for inspiration for Guardians of the Galaxy. I can see that. Crichton is kind of similar to Peter Quill's portrayal. I can see a lot of similarities between the two. Yeah, I wonder if that's what he's pulling from. I don't know. I kind of like the autism in Star Trek, though. Some of those points there was, I don't know. I guess that says something about me, but some of those, I kind of liked how it, like with the science and that, how it played out a lot of times when they would talk about it. Not in like Voyager, but like in the original series and then somewhat in the Next Generation.
Oh yeah, well there were points in basically up until Voyager where there were some of the writers actually did a lot of research and tried their best to keep things in line with some theoretical sciences, and then once you got to Voyager, there was a whole lot of pulling stuff out of your ass.
Yeah, technobabble and all that kind of stuff. I mean, Voyager could have been really good, but they were so wanting to play it safe. They were wanting it to just be so. Is it serialized or is it episodic? What's the one where it's just like no episodes really connect to the other?
I guess that would be more serialized.
Serialized. They wanted it to be that, and so they always had to hit the reset button at the end of every episode. Nothing could really, except for in those rare cases where they would actually allow things to keep going. Like that's when it was interesting. But when it's always like, okay, the ship's in good condition again. That's not nearly as interesting. It's hard to get invested.
Oh yeah, and it is a shame because Voyager in its premise probably had the most potential of any of the Star Trek shows.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're in a completely different part of the galaxy. You can do whatever you want, and you end up doing like discount Klingons. You end up doing a whole lot with the Borg. I mean, there were some interesting parts. The Herodians were really interesting, but again, they're basically discount predators.
Yeah, I like them. I actually kind of like the stuff Voyager did with Q. I mean, I realize that's just dragging over from TNG, but I like the idea of a Q civil war. I actually really like the episode where the one Q wanted to die because he was so boring, or like the universe had become so boring to him.
Yeah,
like,
now
that's actually kind of interesting. Star Trek. That's what Star Trek is at its best. These sort of interesting questions.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I did like that one, and going through the trial and stuff, that was interesting. Asking those kind of questions, I like that as well. There was another Voyager episode that was really good, but I can't think of it off the top of my head right now. I gotta tell you, one show that I've been watching really recently that I liked is speaking of like trials, is Boston Legal. Did you ever watch that, or have you seen that?
My dad used to watch. Is that the one that had Shatner on it?
It is. It's the one that had Shatner. It's pretty good. Like what I like about it is like they are taking these issues, but like they're this law firm, and I mean obviously it's going to be leftist, right? But this is back in 2000 and 2002, like Bush administration. I think maybe 2003, somewhere in there. But the point is though, is that the lawyers will usually get cases, right, and they'll deal with issues, but they'll usually get the right side of it. So for example, like there was one about should you teach creationism in school, and they had to defend the creationists. So they're instead of them having to constantly hear the arguments against it, you're actually getting to have to hear some of the arguments for teaching creationism in school. And I mean, again, they don't always present them well, but at least in the early season, I'm only on season 2 right now. So I don't know if it changes, but in these earlier seasons, they are actually doing a decent job of presenting both sides of the argument. And again, it's because oftentimes they're giving the main characters the controversial side, to the left is what would be the controversial side. So it's really cool to kind of see how these things are addressed in terms of the legal system. Well, and of course, again, it's funny because Shatner has his character has Alzheimer's, so he doesn't know what's going on, but he's very confident all the time.
Shatner's I don't want to say right wing, but by Hollywood standards, Shatner's pretty right wing.
Yeah, he plays a Republican in this, and he's very gung ho about being a Republican.
I used to watch The Practice a lot when I was in high school.
Is that kind of what's that about?
It's another one of these like law firm legal drama things.
Yeah. Of course, this was back in the day when like they would present, a leftist, but they would present him more like a libertarian. And like that's one of the things that I've noticed about a lot of media is like, the liberals back then, they would really be more libertarians, but they call themselves liberals.
Back when they weren't in power?
Yes, back when they weren't in power.
Yeah, during the Bush years, the liberals sounded really libertarian.
Right. That's
and
always
then during
how they
the
were
Obama years, the Republicans sounded really libertarian. It's funny how that works.
Yeah.
Or take Denny Crane, written as a cartoon conservative, a buffoon, a laughingstock, an absolute parody of alpha male conservatives, it nevertheless became a cultural phenomenon because when you get right down to it, people, or American people anyway, are automatically attracted to the strength and especially the confidence of the conservative alpha compared to the kind of douchey liberalism of guys like William Shatner, let's say.
Yeah, I never really got a big douchey liberal vibe off Shatner. I mean, he might be. He's in Hollywood, so I'm sure he's considerably left of me. But by Hollywood standards, he always struck me as somewhat right wing.
I don't know. I don't know. The thing that I liked about Shatner, though, is he did kind of learn how to not take himself as seriously. You know, I mean, like, because people he obviously was the butt of a lot of jokes, and I think that kind of got to him. But then he did learn to sort of joke and laugh and learn how to laugh at himself as well, and really play up a lot of the things that people would make fun of and turn that to his advantage. The other thing that I do respect about William Shatner is, he was really had his head far up his rear end, telling a whole bunch of Star Trek fans to get a life. But then he sort of learned and he recognized, why they liked the show, why they were, looking up to him. And he kind of grew in that. And he wrote a whole book about that. So, and again, I think he really began to appreciate the show. That kind of growth in a person, I do kind of respect that from an actor, having that much self-awareness. I guess that would be the one thing I'd say about Shatner is I guess he is more self-aware than many other actors in Hollywood.
I always found it annoying when a lot of these guys would oh, I'm typecast. Oh, it's such a shame. It's like, well, first of all, you got to play some cultural icon that touched generations of people, and you're probably set for life. If you saved your money, even if you didn't, you could probably go to comic and nerd cons for the rest of your life and charge $50 a pop to write your name on things. There's worse existences to have in this world.
Unless you're Vic Mignogna.
Well, yeah. But, I mean, whining about, who did a really good job after Star Trek of like having a pretty lucrative career was Jonathan Frakes, the guy who played Riker. Like, he didn't really do a lot of on-camera stuff after TNG, but he did a tremendous amount of producing and directing and behind-the-scenes stuff. He's one of the major forces behind that Gargoyles cartoon Disney did.
Yeah.
He actually has directed several episodes of The Orville so far.
Yeah, he's not a half bad director. He was in Fact or Fiction for a little bit too. What is it? Beyond Belief. He did a few episodes of that too.
Grayscale Plaid sends $5 and says Kevin Spacey touched generations of people. Yes, I've heard that.
Allegedly.
Allegedly. I disavow. No, but yes, allegedly he did indeed. Speaking of Seth MacFarlane, yeah, that's another thing he called. Just go back and watch Family Guy, and you'll know all the dark secrets of Hollywood as he sneaks them in his jokes here and there. He knew Bruce Jenner was a tranny like 3 years before anyone else did.
Yeah, it's eerie. That and The Simpsons, like their predictions are very eerie.
Captain's log, stardate 8169.7. The Enterprise has just discovered a strange new planet in the Gamma Fallopian star system. Rasulu, ahead warp 9.
That's early Family Guy too. That's like 99. That's probably before Meg was voiced by Mia Kunis. Somebody says Shatner is the exact opposite of Will Wheaton. I'll give you a perfect example. So here's how much of a douche Will Wheaton is. Like a year ago, I saw somebody had like made a fan Lego set of Star Trek: The Next Generation. It was like I guess a bridge or something, but there's little Lego figurines of like the whole cast that he had made, and he made like a little Wesley one, and the Wesley one was just like obnoxiously crying. You know what I mean? So Will Wheaton lost his shit about this and is publicly picking on this guy who just made this fan set. And he was like, my character touched all sorts of nerdy kids. And like, no, it didn't. No, Will, it did not. Okay. Nobody connected to your character. Your character sucked. All right.
Okay, when was the Mary Sue fan fiction written? Because I'm pretty sure if like that Wesley might have been the first Mary Sue.
He might have predated that. I'm not sure.
I mean, because that was his issue. Like, again, he was good at everything, and he was always right and all this stuff, and it was just.
And it wasn't like he'd come up with he'd come up with an idea, and it would be the spark that would get Geordi to save the day. You know what I mean? It would be like, especially in season 1, like, everybody's got their thumb up their ass and this fucking 12-year-old kid saves the Enterprise.
Yeah.
It was so stupid.
Well, yeah, I don't know. Those first two seasons, there are some good episodes in them, but a lot of them are just not watchable. Like,
season 1. I had a buddy once tell me, like, you know, because he knew I was into Star Trek, so he started checking it out, and he's like, so I was watching TNG, and he's like, should I skip ahead or something? Because it's really bad right now. And I'm like, oh, you're watching season 1, are you? I'm like, yeah, you're probably watching the entire low point of this franchise, at least pre-Discovery it was. And I'm like, yeah, don't watch season 1. Like, if you want to watch season 1, watch the pilot, because it's the pilot and it sets things up, and it's not bad as far as pilots go. I'd
watch
say
Skin of Evil.
Yeah, Skin of Evil, where the tar monster kills Tasha Yar. That's just good old fashioned fun. And Conspiracy is actually a pretty solid episode, even if it never gets followed up on.
That's a good one too.
Other than that, man, I can't think of one worth watching.
Now, the Conspiracy, those creatures, those are supposed to end up being the Trill. They get reworked into the Trill from Deep Space Nine. You know who Dax is, right? Where she's got the worm living inside of her.
Yeah.
That idea is taken from those creatures in Conspiracy. That's originally who they were supposed to be.
Well, the Trill are actually introduced in TNG.
Yes,
a little bit before,
because Riker gets one inside him.
In a way, the Conspiracy bugs were sort of replaced by the Borg, in that, like, after in season 3 when we introduced the Borg, we have a compelling threat that's just over the horizon, as it were. You know, it's just past known space, and it's coming for us. You know, and that's sort of what those bugs were supposed to be. They're just past known space where their homeworld is, and they're coming for us. You know, the classic threat just over the horizon. Well, once we establish the Borg, you know, the soul raping swarm of zombie cyborgs coming to get us, that's a little bit more compelling.
And
So
of course, the
we
Borg
sort of went
get
with that.
touched on even all the way in early season 2 too, where they find those people from the 20th century. They get set up then.
That's right. They did hint around to that then.
Yeah, that was also the reintroduction to the Romulans. Like, they reintroduced the Romulans there, but then they're also setting up the Borg because they're investigating these planets where all of the buildings are gone. All the buildings are gone, everything like that. You know, all the technology has been completed. And that's what the Borg used to do. Rather than coming down and assimilating it, they used to take all of the technology. That, you know, the Borg went through a lot of changes.
Was that the Borg they were hitting around to, or the crystalline entity?
No, that was the Borg.
Okay, yeah, the Star Trek Galactus.
Yeah, because you'll see this in the they talk about it in the first episode of The Best of Both Worlds, where Shelby's there and they're investigating the planet, and it has the same thing that happened to it as in those earlier episodes in TNG with the border planets.
Cool. Yeah, the Borg was
We'll get
badass, man.
to you, Brent.
I want a hamburger. No, a cheeseburger. I want a hot dog. I want a milkshake.
You'll get nothing and like it.
That's one of the best episodes. I can't even remember what the A plot in that was, but it's just Stewie hanging out with the cast of Star Trek The Next Generation, and they're all whiny assholes. And all of them did the voices too. That was fantastic. Somebody in the chat says, remember when the Ferengi were supposed to be the big bads of TNG?
Yeah.
Dude, even worse. Because look, I like Star Trek, no secret there, but I can acknowledge it's bullshit. I can acknowledge the lame aspects of it, and I can acknowledge that Gene Roddenberry was kind of a little fucked in the head, and Gene Roddenberry wanted his space Jews, the Ferengi, to have giant dicks. I'm not making that up. He wanted them to have these fucking cod pieces like over their crotch of just like, and everybody told him no, and he was pushing that for so long, and they're like, no, they're not going to let us air that on television. Like, and why do you want to do that?
Chris, I disavow the use of the term space Jews.
Look, I'm just saying that's clearly
I
what
publicly rebuke you.
That's clearly what they were going for. All right. Like, you can't tell me that looks like some 15th century The Ferengi look like a 15th century like racist caricature of a Jew you'd see in like like the scribes used to put little doodles in the margins when they were writing books.
Shame, shame, shame.
Although I actually heard Razor Fist argue he thinks they're actually space Chinese because they eat with chopsticks.
I don't know. I really have no idea what they were. I can kind of. Well, I don't know. I don't.
I don't even know what they were
Roddenberry was
originally
going for with them.
They
I
had
really
this
don't.
Weird, yeah, they had this weird like they're all like hunched over in the way they walk and stuff at the beginning, like in their earliest appearances, and they got like laser whips. Remember they had laser whips, and
that was really weird.
Never showed again.
That's because it's the dumbest weapon.
Like, is it like electrocute you? Is it made of energy, or is it just lighting up? Is it hot? I don't know. How does it even work?
It did something because it hurts Riker.
Is it? It's
like
season
one Riker always got his tail handed to him.
It's like a lightsaber that needs Viagra. It's the most ridiculous thing.
I don't know. I mean, later on, the Ferengi kind of become Americans, basically. Like that, they're supposed to. They end up becoming the critique to like capitalism.
Instituted progressive income tax 3 months ago. You call that a reform? Taxes go against the very spirit of free enterprise. That's why they call it free.
Though, in all fairness, as much as they wanted to crap on capitalists and all, throughout DS9, the Ferengi were usually right.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
The Ferengi did nothing. Dude, the funniest meme I ever saw was like, those Turning Point America, like, boomer conservative memes you always see passed around. Well, there's one with like Quark standing there in like that classic Turning Point America pose. And it says, "Hey, humans, if you love equality so much, why don't you get assimilated by the Borg?" And then the bottom, it says Turning Point Ferenginard. Space Whip. Yeah, exactly. Space Whip. I don't even they were like on some planet where there's like a fog machine running all the time, and then there's some alien ghost was holding them hostage in that episode. Yeah, season 1 TNG was so bad.
Yeah, well, and I mean, of course, you had Patrick Stewart who hated kids like in that whole time. And he's like, for some reason, he had this weird relationship with kids where he just couldn't stand them.
Well, in all fairness, kids are pretty annoying sometimes.
Eh.
And I will say this: if you're not around kids for a while, and then you are around kids, you'll get sick. Yeah, I'm not making that up. That's like I remember the first time at the one church I was going to when I ended up getting suckered into helping out with the Sunday school for the first time. Like the next day, I felt like I was dying of the plague.
No, that's true. I mean, you're right. You will get sick, absolutely.
Yeah,
my wife brings home stuff all the time. She's a teacher, and so she gets sick, and usually she comes home and brings it and gives it to me.
If you're around kids a lot, it's not so bad. But like, if you're not around kids for a while, you're building up that immunity, and you get around them, they're like walking sewer pipes of diseases. Like they're just.
Yeah, I'm with you, Buddy Smith, in the comments. So one thing that you always found silly is that they got rid of all the religions. Yeah, I agree. I think that was kind of silly. And it wasn't something that was in the original series. There was religion in the original series. They did have a sense of God and even a sense of Christianity. That was just Roddenberry, I think, being more of a fedora in TNG.
Yeah, that's it. And it's funny because all the alien races have spirituality. Like,
yeah, I mean, the Klingons are big into
spirituality. There's a whole episode that revolves around like Klingon Jesus coming back.
Yeah, Kalis.
Yeah, like the rest of them all have spirituality, but no, the humans are above it. And it's like, yeah, that is an annoying aspect of TNG.
I mean, it's kind of done a little bit like that in Deep Space Nine, but that's what I liked about Deep Space Nine is that it actually ended up, it made the universe so much more real. Like if we had just been left with TNG, it would not have been as good as opposed to like what you have with Deep Space Nine. It really humanized a lot of Star
Deep
Trek.
Space Nine really took the piss out of Star Trek, but in a really loving way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, you get so many like SJWs taking over franchises now where they just want to piss on it. You know, they just want to crap on it. Like, I'm smarter than this thing I'm writing for now. But where with the people writing Deep Space Nine, you could tell they really just wanted to do it in a way that just fleshed things out more.
That's right, Steele. They did kill their gods. That's right.
Yeah, there is a thing where Worf says like the Klingons killed their gods. They were more trouble than they were worth.
Yeah, I remember that.
Even the Vulcans had spirituality. Like the Vulcans are always seen.
What are you trying to say? That religion isn't logical?
No, well, no, I'm saying like, you know, for all the fedora tipping of, oh, we've evolved beyond it and all, even the Vulcans are seen like they walk around in these weird robes, have like Triforces on them and shit. Like, I don't know, is Vulcan just Hyrule a million years from now or something? But they got like these weird Triforce symbols on, and they have all kinds of spirituality about them.
They do have pointed ears, and so do the Hylians.
There you go. Vulcan is just Hyrule a million years from the Legend of Zelda.
Get on that, theorist. And then you've got the Calamity Ganon, who's rage and malice, and you have to defeat that with wisdom and courage.
There you go.
But you know what's really frightening? If you drink enough of it, you begin to like it.
So
it's insidious. Just like the Federation.
Simulated Internet Friend says, Federation society is so self-congratulatory, bland, and effeminate that it's a miracle everyone doesn't defect to the Klingons. Say what you will about the tenets of Kalas, at least it's an ethos. Well, that's the thing. Like, one of the things that always got me in the show is like, you know, people say, oh, Star Trek promoted space communism. I'm like, well, if it did a really bad job of it. Because, like, as much as the Federation guys, like, especially at TNG, want to run their mouths about, we don't have money anymore. Everyone else in the galaxy has money.
Yep.
Like, I get it. Okay, you on the Enterprise D, the big flagship at the height of Federation power with your cushy government job, don't need money. Yeah, I'm sure you don't. The rest of the galaxy's still using money.
But they're willing to lord it when they want to get something from them. Like this, my favorite episode of Deep Space Nine is when Quark's restaurant and people are trying to form a union, and there's some writing going on. It says, "We've been very generous to you, and we haven't paid you taxes, but now you're causing trouble. We're going to get you for all those taxes you didn't pay."
Yep. I like the one where it's they're trying to get Jake is trying to get a baseball card for his dad to cheer him up. And like he doesn't have any money, and so like they're having to do all of these different jobs for everybody in order to finally get this baseball card. And like the Dominion ends up like thinking they're like conspiring against them or something. They're like, "You've gone and visited every major senior officer of there. What are you planning?" You know. And like Jake comes up with this crazy story about how like the baseball player is a time traveler or something like that. I don't know. It's just like one of those just decent episodes. It's kind of a filler right before the war, but the war starts. But it's still just a fun episode.
Yeah, Deep Space Nine is probably the height of it. It's weird. My opinions of Deep Space Nine and TNG have basically flipped over the last few years. Like I used, you know, as a kid, I loved TNG, and I'm like, oh, that's the best Star Trek, and it was all downhill from there. And like Deep Space Nine had a rough first season. There's no getting around that. But the more I look back on them, the more I'm like, yeah, Deep Space Nine was the height of the franchise. In my head, I barely remember Enterprise existed, and I barely I choose to believe Star Trek Discovery doesn't exist. That's just a bad dream I had. So it sort of kind of ends with Voyager in my head.
Yeah, I haven't seen any of Discovery, so I don't know. I really like the original series. I mean, I guess it's hard to say. I think the original series and Deep Space Nine are probably about as good, just in different ways, in my opinion. They're you know, I don't think you can really compare them, but I like them both the same.
I think when the original series was on its stride, it was as good. But I kind of view the original series as being insanely hit or miss. You know, there's a line in Futurama where Fry describes it as 70 episodes, about 30 good ones. And I kind of think that's fair. Like, when it's bad, it's bad. But when it's good, I mean, it's stuff that is aged. You know, it's 50 years old, 50 plus years old. So obviously, a lot of it's not going to have aged well.
The one thing I'll say about both of those shows, though, is neither one of them, though, they are very much products of their time. Like, I mean, even they're not nearly as timeless. I mean, you know, Deep Space Nine is very late 90s, early 2000s, so to speak, and then or late 90s, and then of course the original series is very, very 60s. And of course, Voyager is right in that time frame as well. Like all of them are very dated.
TNG is very late 80s, early 90s. I mean,
oh yeah, no, definitely. Yeah,
if you had never seen TNG before in your life, you could look at a picture of TNG and know exactly what year that episode was filmed in.
And just look at the shoulder pads.
Yeah, it's like, oh, that's 88, 89, something like that. Yeah, you're right. Oh, that's like 92. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So I don't know. There's a part of me that's I've not had any interest in really checking out Discovery. I don't know. Of course, and the movies, the J.J. Abrams movies, they were okay, but I mean, like the first one was okay. I had some issues with it, but I did not like the second one, and the third one is decent, but it kind of comes across like more of a fanfic. So
I don't.
You know, 1966. 79 episodes, about 30 good ones.
Yeah, I agree with that assessment of the original show. It's kind of interesting how much the original show didn't have a very strict command structure, like compared to like TNG, especially like TNG, and partly it kind of the characters are almost dehumanized because it was so insanely professional, but like. TNG, you know exactly who outranks who, like all the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas, like with the original series, it's like, okay, Kirk was the captain and Spock was second in command. I couldn't tell you the rank of anybody else. Like, I'd have to look it up. You know what I mean?
Sulu was a lieutenant. Dr. McCoy was lieutenant commander. Lieutenant Uhura was obviously Lieutenant Uhura. Scotty was lieutenant commander, and Chekhov was a ensign.
It seemed to come up so rarely, though. It just seemed like it was the captain and the first officer and sort of everybody else.
Yeah, you can tell it in the uniforms. Like the captain's uniform had 2 solid bands, and then it had 1 dotted band, and that signified the captain. A commander had 2 solid bands on the sleeve. A lieutenant commander had a solid band and then a dotted band. A lieutenant had 1 solid band, and then an ensign had nothing.
Like, I mean, I know just off the top of my head that, like, you know, Data was third in command.
Yeah, he was lieutenant commander.
You know, he outranked Worf. I know, you know, that kind of thing. Like, I could just almost the way everybody interacted with one another. You know, you could pay attention and know the pecking order kind of thing.
Yeah. So, of course, I mean, you know, one of the things is like, you know, Star Trek was supposed to be originally like, you know, wagon trains to the stars. So, I mean, you know, if you're thinking about that being more of a frontier kind of show, and that's what they're doing, then, you know, there's not going to be as much of that
well, yeah,
obvious command structure.
Yeah, the original crew was doing a lot more exploring and, you know, the outer reaches of Federation space, whereas, like, you know, the Enterprise D is sitting at basically the height of Federation power. You know, they're the massive flagship. You know, everything is about professionalism. I mean, most of their missions were, you know, running taxi for diplomats. You know.
Yes, I can be a Donovan. I can be a massive nerd when I want to. So I don't try to fly the flag a whole lot. I try to keep it down, but I could do it if I wanted to.
Is that Mirror Universe Aurora there?
It is.
I thought so. Dressing all like that.
Space abs.
I like the somebody I used to know was all like, oh, you know, because Star Trek was all about secular humanism, and I'm like, it kind of was, but it was bad at it. Like, sort of like the space communism thing. It's like, oh yeah, we're so godless. Like, I mean, TNG, you know, for being godless, the first episode starts with them meeting a god. Half of the original show was about them meeting some space god.
Well, they actually referenced Jesus Christ in one of the episodes in the original series.
Didn't they meet like Apollo or something at one point?
Yeah, they meet Apollo. He dies because they don't have faith in him, so he fades away.
There's a comic at IDW called Q Conflict, where it's basically like it's sort of a crossover between the first 4 shows, you know, not counting Enterprise, and it's like Q is fighting with a bunch of other godlike beings, which are basically all the godlike beings from the original show. And instead of fighting with each other to destroy the universe, they pluck the crews from all those various shows and have them do competitions to decide it. And dude, the funniest part, so he it sort of takes place I want to say right around like the end, like the main part of it takes place right around like the end of the TNG movies, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then like Voyager crew gets plucked from a few years prior, so probably like season 3 or 4 Voyager. DS9 crew gets plucked a few years before that, and then obviously the TNG or the TOS crew is like 104 or like 110 years prior, and you see them disappearing. So all the 4 different races of godlike beings are all picking their teams from these crews, so they're kind of all mixed up, right?
Yeah.
And Quark gets picked last. and the guy's like, okay, I guess I'll take this troll over here. And he's like, troll? And he's like, I'm not even supposed to be here. I'm not in the Federation. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's just, I mean, it's a goofy little comic series, but it's, you know, you get to see a bunch of characters interact you wouldn't normally get to see interact. Because like I said, the crews are all mixed up.
Yeah. Well, you know, the original idea, both behind the original series and then later into the Next Generation, and this is where Deep Space Nine sort of begins to stray away from this, but the original idea behind it was, you know, the idea that technology is going to save us. You know, what's going to cause the next point of human evolution to get us out of poverty, get us out of war and everything? What's going to be technology? We're going to be able to have enough energy and have enough resources for everybody that all of these things that we supposedly fight over, we won't fight over anymore. You know, it'll be the technology that saves us. And if you look at, especially a lot of this shows in the original series, you'll see that they're relying on the computer many times. Well, we have this computer and it can do that. And even so, somewhat in the earlier TNG episode as well, there's this emphasis on how the technology becomes the savior. That's where Deep Space Nine, as you say, kind of, took away from that, because they're actually fighting against the technology a lot of times because they're in this, Cardassian station and everything like that. So they have to fight against it. And it doesn't work for them a lot of times. But that was one of the big things. And like, so when they're encountering some of these space beings, a lot of times, what do? They use their technology to fight against it. Probably the most obvious example of this is when they meet this one statue that looks like a dinosaur, you know, and the people are giving the food to the statue, right? You know, they're worshiping this god, and then they shoot phasers at it and they kill it.
Well, you know, if you think about it though, like it's such a hollow promise, because in many ways, I mean, you know, if your ancestor from a few hundred years ago, or especially like 1,000 years ago, could see how any of us live now, they basically would say that we should have conquered all our problems with technology. For, you know, we do live in incredible abundance, you know, at least in the West, at least in the first world. I mean, you know, you having a refrigerator and lights on would, you know, 99% of your ancestors would trade places with you in a heartbeat. They'd be like, what do you possibly have to complain about? Well, that's the thing about human nature. You always have something to complain about. You always have something to whine about. You always have a reason you're unhappy.
Enough is never enough for us. Which, you know, the show talks about it, right? There's always, you know, this push, but they take a very positive aspect of it in Star Trek. You know, we can never know enough. We always want to be knowing more. That's that drive that pushes us to the stars, that pushes us to know more. You know, I'm channeling Shatner here. But the truth is that same drive that pushes us to know more also pushes us into constantly wanting more and more and more and more.
Well, I mean, and they're not wrong. There is that positive aspect of it, you know? There is the positive aspect that drive, you know, has made things better. That drive does push us to greatness in many ways. There is that positive aspect of it, but there is also the aspect of, you know, you yeah, you're being pushed to ever greater things, at least in theory, with that drive. But are you ever truly appreciating any of those things?
Yeah.
There's a line.
I mean, how much
Voyager,
easier is it to be entertained today versus, you know, how much it was like 20 years ago?
There's a line in Voyager.
Do what?
It's very hard to be entertained today, honestly.
Well, yeah,
Well, okay,
today, but
you
let's
say
say
that, but I mean, think about it. We have YouTube, we have streaming services, we've got video games, all kinds of video games, all kinds of video game systems, all that kind of stuff. You know, I mean, maybe like 50 years ago, you know, it could be difficult to get with VHSs and stuff, you know, in terms of recording movies. The Netflix didn't exist, all that. I mean, you have much greater access to entertainment. You have YouTube, you have all of that. You can chat with people. There's so many more ways to be entertained now than there were even, again, back 20 years ago. But as you say, it's still difficult to be entertained.
Well, yeah, part of it. I mean, we unfortunately do have a bunch of leftist idiots wrecking things left and right. And that is a problem. But you're right. I mean, there are, you know, I haven't watched I barely watch TV at all. I could almost just shut the thing off and be happy because I found other things. There's all these things on YouTube I can watch and stuff like that. You know, there's a line in Voyager and I really liked it. And I can't remember the exact context, but I think it was, you know, it was after some crazy bullshit they had been through, right? And Janeway calls in one of the crew member. I want to say it was Harry, maybe it was Tom. But, you know, this guy had been through some ridiculous nonsense. And she kind of says to him, she's like, why don't you take a couple days off duty? And he's like, oh, I'm fine. I'm healing up or what. And she goes, no, that's not the thing. She goes, you know, we're out here. We're seeing all this amazing, crazy bullshit. And it can kind of become mundane if you let it. So why don't you just take a couple of days off and just sort of, you know, think about what you've been through?
It's probably
Harry. It probably was Harry. I can't remember the exact context, but I sort of remember that being a really interesting moment. You know, like take a moment and, you know, kind of appreciate the amazing thing you just went through.
The universe hates Harry.
Yeah, it kind of did.
The last comment to how comfortable we have it, I'm always reminded of this clip.
I would like a large Tranya and some Cererian candy.
It'll be $4.
Oh, we Federation members have evolved beyond archaic concepts like capitalism and the use of currency.
Oh, then I guess you've evolved beyond concepts like eating.
Dexter's Lab.
Great show.
Yeah. Grayscale, I like that term, the hedonist treadmill. That's a good term. I like that. I might steal that. So,
yeah, there is that aspect where, you know, you can't really enjoy it. Yeah. You know, I mean, that's the great balance of life, you know, is, you know, don't become slothful and lose ambition, but also learn to appreciate what you have in the moment.
Yeah.
You know, if it was easy, everyone would do it.
Which, I mean, that's the one, you know, like that's one of the critiques that I think I could offer in some regard, some of the evangelicals, you know, in regards to our neck of the woods, is sometimes it is very easy to become complacent in that sense. You know, or again, you're not striving, you know, for one sense. So in resting, you don't strive anymore, you know, and that's the thing is that there's a difference between being content and being complacent. You know, contentment is not the same thing as being complacent. And so watching out for that, making sure that, you know, in your contentment, you are not complacent. Because all the times, you know, oh, you should strive to be content. You need to be content in what you have. And unfortunately, though, that leads to people being complacent in their walk with the Lord, complacent in other aspects of life, complacent in not being anything. And that's not the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. I find there's segments of evangelicalism, and it sort of I mean, obviously, there's the ridiculous Joel Osteen segments where it's, you know, send money to my scam church and God will give you a Mercedes or something nonsense like that. You know, claim it, name it, all that other dumb stuff. But then there's like this other segment almost trying to go the opposite direction. It seems to almost, I don't know, romanticize being poor. You know, like oh, it's like you should be ashamed if you have nice things, kind of thing.
You know, I hear that, although it's funny that I typically hear that from the pastors who are not poor.
Well, yeah. Yeah, a lot of times those churches that tell you all to be content being poor, you know, those are the churches where the pastor's got a bunch of big old gold pimp rings on his hand.
Right.
There's a certain church in Rome that tends to fall into that category as well.
But I mean, again, in terms of also just being complacent in terms of knowledge, I mean, I think that's a big one too, and I think that could even be a big issue with many modern evangelicals is, you know, not wanting to know more, you know, not wanting to learn more, not wanting to understand more. That's something that we definitely need to, I think, to change. I think it's some of it's laziness, some of it's a lack of priorities, but again, I think some of it's a misunderstanding. Yeah. But oh gosh, yep. TD Jakes, goodness.
Jeez. You know, the only thing I really know about that guy, other than, you know, his ridiculous, you know, prosperity gospel stuff, is a lot of people gave James McDonald a lot of crap for, I guess, meeting with him. James McDonald was trying to do some like meeting of a bunch of big evangelical minds, and he was one of them. And supposedly people say he denies the Trinity or something.
Well, he's known. People argue, and I think there's good reason to believe that he is what's called a Molinist. So what Molinists believe is that you have the Father, you have one God, and sometimes God manifests himself as the Father, and then sometimes he manifests himself as the Son, and then other times he will manifest himself as the Holy Spirit. So rather than the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit being three distinct persons, it is one God who is manifested in three different forms. And so people argue, and again, I've not studied this greatly, but just from what I've heard, there does seem to be a case to make, you know, he does like using that word manifest. He loves to use that word, that God manifested as the Father. God manifests himself as the Holy Spirit. He does prefer that term. That's typically the term used by Molinists. And so in that sense, modalist, not Molinist. I'm sorry, modalist, you're correct. Modalist, not Molinist. Molinist is something different. That's a third middle knowledge. Thank you. Yes, thank you for the correction. Modalist. Modalism, not Molinism.
Yeah, I actually first time I read that, there was some book on Christianity I was reading, and they described they were talking about the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, and they said picture it like the way water can be liquid, ice, or steam, but it still retains its essential nature, but it has different properties. And they said that's a good way to describe the differences and similarities between the three persons of the Trinity. But then it said, now this isn't modalism in the sense of, like, they then said, now this doesn't fall into modalism where the drop of water is only one of those things at a time. This is just a good analogy to understand the difference, you know, properties yet similar nature and that kind of stuff. That was the first time I heard modalism and had to look it up.
Yeah, there are no good analogies when it comes to the Trinity, in my opinion. I think the biggest thing is to stay away from them. And like Luke brought it up.
It's like water, and how you can find water in three different forms: liquid and ice and vapor.
That's modalism, Patrick.
What?
Modalism, an ancient heresy confessed by teachers such as Noetus and Sibelius, which espouses that God is not three distinct persons, but that he merely reveals himself in three different forms. This heresy was clearly condemned in Canon 1 at the First Council of Constantinople in 381 AD, and those who confess it cannot rightly be considered a part of the Church Catholic. Come on, Patrick! Yeah, get it together, Pat.
But yeah, I remember reading that somewhere, and they said, you know, that it's not that's an analogy that can describe the differences, but it doesn't totally fit, because otherwise it falls into modalism. And I was like, what the hell is modalism? I had to look it up.
And it's
there's really, I mean, again, I always argue that there is no good analogy to describe what the Trinity is like, and that's because you know, I believe God is totally unique, and if He is totally unique, and I'm not saying totally, you know, totally, but like, I mean, there is nothing like God, and so if there's nothing like God, no analogy is going to be sufficient to describe the nature of God in regards to the Trinity, because in this way He is completely unique.
Well, an analogy, I mean, you're not supposed to take an analogy exactly literally. It's just supposed to give you a vague shadow of a picture of something. It's not, analogies aren't meant to be a one-in-one comparison necessarily.
True, but again, it can't explain it. So,
layers of an.
Go ahead.
Partialism revisited.
Fine. The Trinity is a mystery which cannot be comprehended by human reason, but is understood only through faith and is best confessed in the words of the Athanasian Creed, which states that we worship one God in Trinity and Trinity in unity, neither confusing the persons nor dividing the substance, that we are compelled by the Christian truth to confess that each distinct person is God and Lord, and that the deity of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit is one, equal in glory, co-equal in majesty.
Some dude, Sam, sends $5, said Vox Day has a post on his blog where he called the Trinity a false doctrine. Yeah, I've read a little bit of Vox rumbling on about the Trinity. I haven't heard him totally describe why he thinks that, but a lot of it's basic bitch arguments like, well, it doesn't say Trinity in the Bible. Like, what do you think it is then? Like,
I'm preaching on John chapter 8, verses 48 through 59 tomorrow, where Jesus explicitly says, "Truly, truly, I say to you, before Abraham was, I am." Specifically referencing the point where God says, I am that which I am. And of course, again, if you want to know, well, how do you know that Jesus there is talking about he's calling himself God? Because the very next verse says, so they picked up stones to throw at him, but Jesus hid himself and went out of the temple. Now, why would they pick up stones to throw at him? Because that's what you did to someone who is blasphemous. That was the punishment for blasphemy. Calling yourself God, if you're not God, is blasphemous. They understood what Jesus meant. That's just one example. But anyway.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know where Vox gets that from. But then again, Vox Day, he's not a very teachable guy. A lot of times, he's kind of an arrogant ass from time to time. So, I mean, I like his blog. I've liked a lot of his writings over the years, but there's no denying that about him.
Yeah, well, I mean, again, in terms of the word Trinity, no, the Trinity does not exist in the Bible. And even, the idea that there is one being God, but three distinct persons, that language is not present in Scripture. What is present is the concept that there is one God, that the Father is God, the Son is God, the Holy Spirit is God. The Spirit is not the Father is not the Son, and the Son is not the Spirit. That concept is in Scripture. The language that we get is to explain that concept, to make it to where we can understand it. That's where the language of being in person comes from. And again, we are presented with that from the understanding that that is what is taught in Scripture. And if we believe that Scripture is inspired by God, that God breathed it out, that it is consistent, that it is it does not contradict itself, then we are pushed into believing the Trinity, believing what is espoused at the Nicene Creed, by harmonizing the text of Scripture. So, I mean, again, you could look at it and you could just say, well, it's just completely contradictory, it's all false, and okay, there you go. That's your understanding there. But from the Christian context, that's why we believe it, is because it is taught in Scripture. So,
yeah, I don't know how you make sense of what Scripture teaches without that concept.
Someone saying Vox doesn't say Jesus is not God. He questions the nature of the Holy Spirit. So he believes in a Trinity.
Is that the two equivalent of the Trinity?
I don't think so.
Well, I just learned a new word today. There you go.
Well, why didn't you just say that, Patrick? Yeah, quit beating around the bush, Patrick. Now let's all put on some giant green foam hats, get riotously drunk, and vomit in the Chicago River to celebrate our conversion.
All right. Well, I think I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up because I'm kind of out of topics. Pastor Tom, thanks for being on. Always great having you on.
Oh, thank you for inviting me. So,
because I know you got work in the morning.
Will we someday see a discussion between Jim Goad and Pastor Tom about Christianity? I doubt it, because I doubt I'm a nobody. So why would Jim Goad bother with me?
I mean, who knows?
On the one hand, I'd be happy to talk with Jim Goad about Christianity, but again, I'm a nobody, so why would he talk to me? Why would he waste his time? What does he gain from it?
If you say on the internet that you don't think he's cool, he might show up. It's sort of...
I mean, given what I saw in a debate with him and Matt Forney, I don't know how productive the conversation would be. He tends to just result to insults very quickly. But I mean, so.
Well, like I said, I know you got work in the morning, and because some people seem to think you're my pastor, I guess I got the long commute to South Carolina to attend your church in the morning.
If you're going to South Carolina, then you're not going where I am because I'm not in South Carolina.
Oh, that's right. You're not. I'm not gonna be talking about where you're at, anyways. I shouldn't be doing that.
But yeah, it would be a great commute for you. But no, I'm not your pastor. I mean, I'm you know. Hopefully, I'm your friend.
Yes, you are. You're friend of both me and the show. That's
so. But you know.
But like I said, thanks for being on. Always great having you on.
Thanks for being on. I absolutely find so much of your language completely repulsive. You should repent of your cussing and your vulgarity.
All right. Well, I should probably do a lot of things.
But there's salvation in Jesus Christ.
So that's about all we got for tonight, folks. I want to thank you all for listening. Bechtloff out.